Wade Bay.
Thanks, Deputy Speaker. And I rise to add my voice and objection to the bill before the House, the Communications Legislation Amendment Combating Misinformation and Disinformation Bill. We've heard from numerous speakers about this bill and the nature of it, and I must say that I think that in my 8 years coming to this place and serving the people of Wide Bay, this bill for me is one of the most dangerous bills and one of the most grievous attacks on what we hold close in our nation and what makes us great as a nation, and that's the element of free speech. The bill, the construction of the bill is, this version of the bill gives a regulator, the Australian Media and Communications Authority, ACMA, powers to require digital platforms to take specific steps to reduce misinformation and disinformation. Under the bill, ACMA does not make rulings on whether a particular piece of content is misinformation or disinformation. Rather, it is given powers to determine whether digital platforms are taking adequate steps to prevent and respond to misinformation and disinformation. If ACMA determines that a platform is not taking adequate steps, it can issue fines of up to 5% of the company's global turnover. The ubiquitous nature of the internet places it in all of our lives, and it's ever increasing. 20 years ago, we didn't rely on it for much at all. It was only a minor part of our life, but it has become an important part of our life on many levels. Safety, governments rely on it to convey a message. Communication. When my predecessor started in this place in 1990, the way you got your message across was in the letters to the editor in the newspaper. And that was the place, the forum, and it took much time. But now we've evolved, and the discussion happens in real time, and it happens online, and that's a good thing. That is a good thing. People have the opportunity to discuss, and sometimes they do get it wrong in those discussions. Sometimes they will unintentionally put something forward that may not be right, but they should not be committing an offence. They should not be committing an offence, particularly where there is no intent. But this bill certainly puts those in charge of platforms in a position where they will receive a penalty if they allow that to happen. That will have the consequence of dumbing down free speech. This, for me, is a digital version of the burning of the books, really. It worries me tremendously. Of course you need some regulation within this environment. It has its great dangers, and recently this Albanese government was dragged kicking and screaming to age verification for young people, we'll have safeguards for young people accessing pornography and gambling sites, and that's good. They're the sorts of regulations and rules that we need. They actually help society. But this is a bill that is clearly an attack on free speech and an attack on everyday citizens who want to engage in that. We should, instead of encouraging people to speak, to use their words, to make their point, we have a government that is shutting them down. This is the sort of stuff you see in Russia or in China. This is not Australia. This is absolutely frightening. My constituents have inundated me with their concerns about this bill, and I share them. I share those concerns. I share the concerns of the 20,000 people that gave feedback to the initial draft that went out, and then which this is a rehash of. I share those concerns because those concerns are real. This is poor legislation. The misinformation definition is one that is so broad and open to interpretation. As I said before, it captures opinions that can be made in good faith. How is that happening in a democracy like Australia? Something that's said in good faith is now an offence, and someone's going to be fined for not shutting it down. The serious harm element of this bill, the broad definition for serious harm, now that we've got very recent and stark examples where this applies. So serious harm can occur in the environments of an election, of a referendum. Now that's a good one. We've all lived through a recent referendum, The Voice, and the use of the term misinformation there was absolutely extraordinary. And what we had was we had a government who was not providing the information. They were providing no information. And typically, you're discouraged from making a negative inference on something. But there are times when it's valid to make a negative inference. When a government has information they're not sharing with you, they're not answering the questions, and we saw this with The Voice about the construction of what they were proposing, it was open to the opponents of that to say this is what it is. They're not saying it, this is what it is. And those negative inferences now would be seen to be misinformation when they're absolutely valid and they're an important part of the discussion and the debate. It beggars belief. Public health. The one time I crossed the floor in this chamber was to support Craig Kelly in a motion that was calling on this place to discuss what was happening in terms of government regulation, and that was my side. That was both sides were guilty of overreach when it came to that. But that motion that I crossed the floor on to bring on a debate about those things was lost. And it really, in my mind, showed that this place and government can get things wrong because we weren't discussing things and things were being shut down. Discussions were being shut down. Valid points were being censored. We saw that through COVID. And now we're legislating. We're legislating to make misinformation and disinformation a part of our lives. If that wasn't a big enough example for all of us to say, let the sun shine in, let the views and opinions of everyone come forward, let's look at them. We're in an uncharted territory. No, let's shut down the discussion. Let's not let people speak. That's not why I stand in this place serving the people. I stand in this place to encourage discussion. And if that discussion is wrong, so be it. That's the whole nature of debating things. This bill is so open to potential political weaponisation. It is absolutely disgraceful. The minister can personally order misinformation investigations. Orwell's got a good run through this, but the minister, I'll say that again, the minister can personally order misinformation investigations. What is happening to Australia under this Albanese government? They can exempt certain digital platforms. So the minister can say, oh, no, I think that one is exempt. Why? Well, you don't have to be Einstein. There'll be political bias associated with the determinations on this. My colleague mentions the union movement, the CFMEU, and I agree wholeheartedly with him. It treats Australians differently also. This is academics and scientists and artists are treated differently. Now, I'm not going to criticise academics or scientists, but let's not kid ourselves and deny that that history shows that sometimes the best research and the best science money can buy has backed up things that we now know to be completely wrong. Completely wrong. But if you're an academic, you can't be challenged under this legislation, and I find that a bit confronting as well. The average Australian citizen is treated like they're dumb, effectively. But if you've got a few letters in front of your name, you're exempt from this legislation. I didn't finish high school. I stand here in the parliament representing my people because they have had a good look at me and they've said to themselves, we like this bloke and we think he's trustworthy and we'll put him in there to represent us. I didn't finish high school. I'm treated exactly the same in this chamber because that's what democracy and debate is about. We're all equals. We're all equals. There's plenty of people in here that are far more educated than what I am, but they're equal to me in this place. But that's what we should be striving for in society. But instead, this draws a line and says, no, you're an academic, you're qualified, therefore you can speak freely, but because you haven't been educated in the same way, I'm sorry, we're going to treat you very, very differently. This is the stuff of nightmares. ACMA also has information gathering powers. Once again, very frightening stuff. I'm not alone. Obviously, I said before that many of my constituents, and there were 20,000 responses to the draft legislation when it went out, or the discussion paper, but I'm not alone. And I'll read here the New South Wales Solicitor General Michael Sexton, what he had to say. It targets contestable political opinion on social media and is based on the patronising assumption that members of the community cannot make a judgment about those opinions, but must be protected from the obvious inadequacies of their judgment. And that's a more articulate way and concise way of what I said before. This government is treating people like they are dumb and they can't be trusted with their own words or beliefs, exactly. And to go to beliefs, the Australian Christian lobby, their quotes: "There is no excuse for what's proposed in this bill. Where the government should be safeguarding the free speech of Australians, it will instead require social media to control our public discourse, from public health to politics to the economy and ideology. How this bill defines harm will determine what you are allowed to say online." If this bill passes the parliament, it will be a very, very sad day for Australia, and it will signal a very dangerous future where government tells you what you can and can't say, and government penalises people and organisations for not policing the truth in the way that they would like.